So when I do the work, it's coming from a whole nother level of passion and commitment. I truly feel like the work that I've done within the communities of Houston, learning the skills to articulate yourself when you have certain issues, knowing how to address trauma that you never dealt with before, having certain particular conversations with people that are difficult to have conversations with, but finding a medium to be able to do that. These are what the restorative practices that have helped me do.
All right, so about 5 years today, I started my venture into getting into motivational speaking and the business behind it. I had no clue what it was about. I spoke at a couple colleges, a couple high schools, a couple programs that I was initiated to in the past, but going into the business full time, I had no idea about it. So the first thing I did was reach to as many people as possible. I did a little research, reached out to celebrities, to people that were in the business, that people knew about the business, and I just kept on contacting people after people after people. And I remember one person answered, and that was it. And this person was called Arel Moodie. And from that moment, this person he had a bunch of experience, which we'll get into in a few, in the realm of speaking. But he was very open and vulnerable with me about the business and how to get into it, and how to invest on yourself. So with that, I took his advice. We built a relationship through online, and then we were able to communicate a couple times over the phone. And then, over time, I invested. He seen the potential I had. He gave me a couple tips. I invested in his program that he developed over time called True Speaking Success. And that's where everything changed for me. I was trying to, do it on my own and speak and build my business from ground up. But sometimes you just need to know the things you don't know. And to do that, you need to be associated with people that have been there, done that, and know how to get to the next level. So with that, I was able to learn so much from this person, and it's positioned me in the place where I am today, where I'm speaking across the country. I've developed programming, and now I'm being one of the people that are being sought out for restorative practices across the country. Now, the main thing that I learned from Arel was solving a problem. It's not about just going and the glitz and glamour and speaking in front of thousands of people and telling your story. It's about finding a problem that people have and being able to create a solution for them, right? Problem solving, filling a gap. And I learned that from him, where he saw a gap in the speaking world, where people didn't know where to look to or what to do specifically. And he created this programming, True Speaking Success, where he was able to help people advance to the next level. And I'm a product of that. And from that, I for so long, I was like, how am I going to develop a program, and how am I going to create something that can last forever? And with time, life experiences, I was able to be where I'm at now with restorative practices and creating my curriculum and implemented within schools across the country. So without further ado, I want to introduce our very special guest today. He is a best-selling author. He is a motivational speaker. He spoke at the White House when President Obama was there. He was seen on Inc. magazine as top 30 under 30 entrepreneurs, also listed alongside people like Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. And he has a bunch of credentials. He's been all over the place. He's taught in 5 different countries. Well-renowned speaker, Arel Moodie. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful, wonderful introduction, man.
Absolutely.
And, one thing I will say is when you reached out to me, I always like to see which people have like tenacity, you know, and you reached out once and, I gave kind of a generic reply on purpose to see, would you reach out again? And you did. And as soon as you do that, I go, okay, this is a serious person. Because a lot of people want it, but they're not hungry. And I can tell you are hungry. And that hunger is surprisingly missing in 99% of people, not in their internal hunger, but in their willingness to put themselves out there. And you have it. And that's why I'm so glad to see you doing so well.
No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And I appreciate you being on the show. And I appreciate you being able to, weigh it out and see my tenacity and my willingness to put myself out there. Once again, we talk about this on the podcast constantly about putting yourself in spaces that you didn't grow up in or around people that you didn't grow up in around. Once you find those people, put yourself out there and fully engage and learn. I felt that in order to be a speaker and a world-renowned speaker, I needed to be around people that were walking the walk. And this man right here, Arel, was walking the walk in 2015 and still is walking the walk on the high levels. And for me to just be associated with someone on that level was everything. So I put it all in. And if you want anything in any career, that's what I would advise you to do. Just go out and find those people and attach yourself. Don't worry about who says no, worry about who says yes, and learn as much as you can from those people and then build your own thing, and that relationship and that bond will grow. So the first question that I want to ask you, Arel, is for our audience to get a better understanding of who you are and where you come from. How did you get into the speaking world, and when did you first invest in yourself?
So for me, I got introduced into speaking because I got really interested in entrepreneurship when I was in college.
Okay.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which if anyone hasn't read, you have to read it.
Yes.
And one of the things they talk about in the book is like rich people, they think differently, they act differently. So if you want that, just do what they do. So interview, get around successful people. So that's what I did. And what was interesting is everyone who I wanted to be around turned out were entrepreneurs. I didn't know that at the time. All the people I deemed were successful entrepreneurs. So I was going around these entrepreneurs and they kept saying, you got to learn, you got to learn, you got to learn. So I'd go to a bunch of events and there'd be speakers there. And most of the speakers, they were bad. They were boring. So I just thought, it is what it is. And this is the price of admission to success. And I got to deal with boring speakers and whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But then there was a really good speaker. I was about 19 when this happened. And he was phenomenal. He was funny. He told good stories. He shared things that stayed with me. And I remember seeing him, and just for the first time in my life, I had this thought that said, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. I'm going to do, whatever that is, I want to do that, and that's amazing. But I thought I had to be like a 55-year-old white guy to be a speaker because that's all I saw. Right?
Yeah.
So then I met this guy, really great guy named Victor Antonio, who is a speaker as well. And I had graduated college at this point. I was full-time in entrepreneurship. And he spoke, and I said, dude, in 20 years, watch out. I'm going to be doing what you're doing. And, he gave me just a simple but really powerful piece of advice, which was, well, why wait 20 years? Why not do it now?
Yeah.
And I was like, but don't I have to be like an old dude or what? He was like, look, at the time I was 23. And he said, if you speak, because he's probably in his like 50s or 60s. He said, when I speak, I'm a father figure. When you speak, you can be a big brother figure. And that's valuable. And then I was like, all right, well, you gave me the permission I couldn't give myself. So I just went all in, and I've been doing it 13 years. Wow,
that's amazing, man. And, I didn't even know it was like a profession. I kind of, like I told you when I first met you, I was getting called back to speak constantly to my alumni, and I spoke at my graduation. I didn't even know it was a profession. But I remember that feeling of like, oh, snap. Like, it's that beginner's luck, I believe, where I went up there the first time and it just went, people were laughing, people were cheering. And I was just like, oh, snap, I could do this. So I just remember that feeling before I found out it was a profession, and I had the confidence to go reach out. So,
and that feeling, and I'll say something, it's really important because when people want to know what they should be doing, I would argue that feeling is feeling alive, right? Yes. And when you feel alive, you have to keep doing whatever makes you feel alive. And I think most people are just existing, and they're just going from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday. But when you do things that make you feel alive, like you feel energy coursing through you, you feel nervousness, you feel excitement, you feel this incredible range of emotion, that is what allows you to put in the work necessary to succeed at it. Because if you don't feel alive when you do it, you're gonna quit. For sure. Because it's not worth it. But when you feel, oh my gosh, I feel alive, the work that needs to be put in will be done so that you can get that feeling. For
sure. I completely agree with that. Now, with your background, to get into your background before college and before you were around people that ended up being entrepreneurs, how did your background ready you to be this big time speaker that could connect with people and, show? Because one thing that I learned from you, and what I needed to learn how to do in my educational background in schools was change having sympathy to having empathy. And I learned from you, seeing you and doing your TED Talks and everything like that you had like this sense of empathy when you talked. And I was like, I need to like genuinely get that. So I know there's a lot of backstory to that. What in your childhood kind of got you to be this, the speaker that can connect with people?
Well, when you're going through the tough part, it doesn't make any sense to you, but when you become older and you can look back, it all makes sense. I grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, an area called Canarsie, and it was predominantly African American, and my dad is Jamaican, he's black, and my mom is a white Jewish woman. So I was just out the gate visually different than almost everyone else. Now mixed babies, we're everywhere. We kind of cool now, but when I was growing up in the 80s, there wasn't many of us, So because of that, one, I know what it feels like to be made fun of. I know what it feels like to not have money, to be, we eat good the first 2 weeks because we got food stamps, and the next 2 weeks you thin it out until you get that next check, right? And I think all of that humility of, sucking at life. I felt like I was poor, I was different, I wasn't good at basketball or fighting or rapping, which was, the three main ways that you proved yourself in the neighborhood. For sure. And I because I felt all of that pain of being different and outed and just not the same as my friends, but then also because I was black and white, I had this black side of my family and this white side of my family. So I had to spend time with people who were white and people who were black, and it made me realize that I don't have to be afraid. That exposure, I didn't realize this as a kid, but as an adult, it's why I feel so comfortable in so many different environments, because as a kid, I never created an image like I can't chill with Asians or I can't chill with rich people or poor people, whatever, because it was, at least I had a touch of it. I could taste it just a little bit. Yeah. So I think all of that gives you this incredible empathy, and it ultimately dealing with suicidal thoughts and dealing with I have no purpose, to finding this almost holy grail of personal development where you work on yourself and realize that no matter where I start, I can end wherever I want to. And I just have to pay the price and go through it. I realized I could maybe help others with that. And that background and that empathy of knowing what it's like to be at your lowest gives me an incredible desire to make sure that no matter where people start, they don't have to end up that way, which unfortunately many people don't ever make that decision. They don't have to end up where they started.
For sure. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for my audience and everybody to hear people on your level and our level to speak on that, because for me, I grew up and seeing a lot of men trying to mask that, you know what I mean? And like that fear, that pain with, the trying to cover it up with, I play sports or, get into fights or, you know what I mean? And it just became a part of the mass of masculinity and trying to be who's more manly and who's more tough. And it just builds up, this unmet trauma that, ends up, damaging you as a person later on. And for me, seeing that directly affect my father, all the way to his passing day, where he struggled with, he was such a sweet person and he meant so well, but he had this exterior he had to keep up with. He had tattoos. He talked kind of like Scarface because of his accent, but, you know, and he had this persona that, you know, he couldn't be disrespected and he couldn't, you know, be looked at a certain way. And it just, I seen both sides of it, and it kind of killed him. So I appreciate, you know what I mean, you, and I know that's damaging a lot of men in society today. I appreciate you being able to articulate that and break that down, because that's what's struggling in our communities now with men of color in particular, where they're just struggling to just be okay with being them because of their environments, forcing them to feel like they have to cover up or, you know, protect themselves in a way. You know,
it's interesting. One of the more profound things that I ever heard on that topic was that actually Jay-Z talked about it. I thought it was really well said, where he said, if you actually like break down a fight, like let's take a fight in like the hood where someone's looking at someone, they say, why are you looking at me? What you looking at? Right? What that person is really saying is, I don't want you to see me.
Yep.
Right? Like when you get upset when someone's looking at you to the point that you want to fight, it's because maybe you felt vulnerable, like, yo, they really saw me.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to see me. So their response is, yo, what you looking at? And then, like, how many fights have started just because they said, yo, somebody was looking at me wrong?
Yeah.
But in reality, all they was doing was, like, they were looking at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you were in, so there's so much, I think, of one masculinity at a big level that we don't want to be seen.
Yeah,
like this, did they see me when I was in a thought of this, like, you know, vulnerable, scared thought, and there's something that showed on my face and they saw me in that moment. I can't have someone see me in that moment, so I have to overkill and now go fight somebody. But when you work on yourself and you listen to podcasts like yours, and I'm so grateful that you're putting this out, brother, because if you can realize the long journey of finding yourself and being comfortable with yourself, then that internal pain, it's there, it doesn't go away, but it doesn't affect you in the same way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And even on another one of the rappers that you met, Nipsey Hussle, he talked about you know, when people in the gang culture, when males are looking for another person, another gang, when they describe them, they kind of break it down, and he's like wearing this, and he looks like this, he has braids or he has tattoos or whatever, and basically describing themselves. You know what I mean? And he broke it down. I was like, damn, that's crazy, where there's so much hate for ourselves, you know what I mean? Because we're so conditioned that we're essentially looking for ourselves in the street, you know, to do damage to that person, when it's just a reflection of who you are. You know what I mean? Just representing another party, you know what I mean? And I just thought, like, that was like, you know what I mean? And I appreciate people like Jay-Z and Nipsey while he was here to, like, you know, break that down for people to see, you know what I mean, what's really going on. And these are people that were both in it, you know what I mean, in the most dangerous places in America, seeing it head on. You know what I mean? So being able to break that down will help, you know, change the narrative for us men of color and for men in general, because I think we all struggle with some type of trauma, and it's all about who identifies it as trauma, you know what I mean, to start it off. So I appreciate that, man. I think that's deep. So with your background, building that empathy, seeing what you went through, and then going into college and being around entrepreneurs. I know you've done a lot even in college, because looking at your resume, you was building a business while you were in college with roommates and stuff like that. When you got into the speaking business, when did it hit you that, because that's something I took from you, like being under your mentorship and seeing your story and trying to figure out how was I going to create my own thing. You know, being in education, I used to go, and I said this before, when I got into restorative practices and I became a practitioner at KIPP Houston High School, I used to go to these conferences for restorative practices, and it used to make me feel amazing. Like, they show you how to do circles, they show you the reason why it's needed, and then they give you this whole day seminar, and then you leave and you're like, okay, how does this work inside the classroom? I didn't see anything tangible. So I seen a gap, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to work to fit that gap. You know what I mean? Bridge that gap. And for me, that was building a curriculum where I can help, where I do these presentations, people could take something that's tangible and step by step build the culture of restorative practices into proactive, not reactive when things go wrong, but like change the culture from day one to go throughout the whole year. When was it for you that you saw a gap in the speaking world to create your program, True Speaking Success, for speakers that are like lost and trying to figure it out? When was your moment when you saw that, like, oh snap, like that's something I can like help people with?
Well, when I first got into speaking, the big realization is that a lot of speakers, what happens, and it's a very natural process, but people don't realize it. What happens is when they evolve and get to a certain point, they almost forget what it's like to be just starting, right? So an example of that would be like if I wanted to open up a coffee shop, Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, people might go, oh, that's an incredible mentor. He has no idea how to start a store right now. He knows how to start a store a day, right? But he can't give you the mentorship of the individuality of the store because his mind and his level has expanded, right? So what I kept seeing were people coming in and similar to you, sharing very high level ideas and very like philosophically profound ideas. But then I'd go, now what do I do, right? Like, how do I tomorrow like change the way I feel about myself and what do I do? So my biggest thing when I was starting out was my personal frustration. It's like I'm going to all of these motivational events, I'm going to all these speeches, I'm doing what everyone's telling me to do, and everything they're telling me, I'm not sure how to apply it. And then what I would do is go out and just, with the business that I had at the time and fail and go through the stuff. And I go, oh, when they were talking about like grit, this is the example because I got to cold call people and I'm scared to death of doing that. Now it's making sense. Why didn't they just say that? So I started putting a presentation together that taught really good principles, but then gave actual examples. And I felt like, that was the magic formula, the why. This is why this is important. And then the how, this is how you do it.
Yeah. Man, I going through the program and investing, I know it took me some time because I was trying to figure, and as everybody starts out, I was like, I could do this on my own. I got my YouTube thing going on. I'm building my thing. And I remember you telling me, and you didn't put no pressure on me. I think that was the best thing about it. It was just like, okay, go ahead. Let's see what you could do. And I went out there, I did as much as I could. And, I created content after content, but I wouldn't get the money that I thought I was deserving of. I wasn't getting paid for my services as I thought I should. And when I finally invested into the program, I learned so much. Like, it's just the simple things that you don't even think about, like, what to say in a subject line of an email, or, like how to like the things that people are scared to do, you just say, go do, and it makes all the difference. And it's just a reminder, and just the little techniques, it changed everything. I remember I literally went from making, I remember when I first invested, it was within 3 months of using your program. I went from making $1,000, right, for one speaking engagement. And then I wrote a book within that 3 months. That's how, I'm super intense, as Ariel had mentioned before. I got straight into it. Like, I was not playing any games. I wrote the book. Once I downloaded the program and got invested into it, I wrote a book. And then my next speaking engagement was like triple that, which was 5,000. And then it kept growing from there. And I attested to Ariel's program, and I like he did the work and everything. He talked about personal experience of like falling down and tripping, and it kind of felt like, it was kind of like a big brother, like you watching, and he's telling you, okay, he's kicking game to you, kind of like, this is what I learned from my experience when I did this, when I did that, and this will help you, so like you wouldn't have to go through the same mistakes. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's exactly it, right? So, like, and you're bringing up a really, really valid, point here. A lot of times what happens, why people take longer to get to success, or they don't get to it, is simply because they're experiencing and they're like, I don't know if this will work, or I don't know what I should do. But if someone can be like, yo, this works, trust me, I've done it, and then you do it, you go, oh, it does. Like a very simple thing. Like I want to make this tangible so people can get it. If they understand, as an example, let's talk about speaking, and let's say you're negotiating your fee. If you say, hey, this is my fee, right? Now you're creating a yes or no response from the person. Hey, my fee is $5,000. They either go yes or they go no. But if I go, hey, option one is all of these things, and I build value first, it's $5,000. Or you can do option two, all this value, and it's $7,500. Which one of these do you think is a better fit? Just by that sentence alone, that change, you move the decision from a yes or no to an either or, right? So what happens in your client's mind is they're not trying to decide, do I want to do this? They're trying to decide, which one of these is a better fit for what I'm doing. So what happens is, if you're doing your whole life not knowing how to quote a price the right way, you're underselling yourself. And what tends to happen for people all the time, which I always love when people say, they go, dude, I started making so much more just by offering a second option. And it's like, that's how it works. So that's what happens, is that when people learn these strategies from people, from mentors who've already gone through the pain and figured it out, you just get there quicker. And I think ultimately, I think it goes down to that idea of pride, of people falsely want to think, I did it, I'm self-made, I did it myself. Can't nobody say they owe me, like I owe them any. There's this really weird belief, and I see it a lot in I'm making a generalization here, but I see it a lot in more of, like when I grew up in the inner city, when I grew up in Brooklyn, I see that there. But now that I'm in other environments that is just different economic environments, wealthier environments, no one talks like that. No one.
It's crazy.
Everyone is always priding themselves on their mentors and who's helped them. So you go, okay, there's a distinction in how people who aren't achieving certain levels of success think and people who do. And I think when we let our ego go and realize making impact and doing what I love is more important than me getting to beat my chest like a gorilla and say I did it myself.
And I mean, that's exactly what it was. And that's what it is. And I see that evidently in my old neighborhoods or with family, unfortunately. Some family members, you just see in the way they look about, they see money, or that how they want to, like investments and stuff like that. And when you get in different worlds, you like, people don't think like that. You know what I mean? People really think differently. Like, looking for mentorship is natural. You know what I mean? I was the weird one in my community, because I was always, when I was playing basketball, I wasn't that good, and I looked for mentorship. I went around the guys, I asked questions. I seen a coach and I asked him to train me. You know what I mean? Like, I remember going way back to when I was a preteen, and I was doing the same type of thing, and I was seen as the outcast for, why you doing that? Why you got to work extra hard? That don't make no sense. Why you showing up 3 hours before everybody comes to the park, and then you leaving 3 hours after everybody leaves? I was like, because I want to get better. Like, I don't want to stay here. You know what I mean? I want to do something. So like, and that's where the whole translated success thing comes from. Like, I just transferred my energy to different aspects of my life. I translated it. You know what I mean? It looks totally different, but it means the same thing. And like that thing you brought up, like, it recently happened. Like, ever since I've joined your program 5 years ago in 2015, it just is a snowball effect, right? Then recently my wife, and I don't know if you probably know Dave Ramsey, right, Ariel? Yeah, so my wife got it. She read the book. She read the Dave Ramsey book, and that's how it starts. And apparently it's a household name. Like, people say you got Ramseyed or something like that. And she was on it. She was on it for like a whole month. And I'm like, okay, I was kind of fighting it. I don't know why. It's just natural, right? And then, I finally give in, and I start listening to the podcast that he has, that he helps people with money. Dave Ramsey is a guy that helps you erase debt, basically. And the only debt that we have is student loans. And I remember, I was like, I'll just make more money and erase the debt eventually, which is a bad way of thinking. And when you're around wealthy people or people in a different bracket or different world like Dave Ramsey, that's just incorrect. So I gave in, and within, I swear to you, Ariel, just like with your program, within 2 weeks, 2 weeks to 2 months, we paid off $40,000 in student loan debt. And I'm like, damn, it only took me just to jump. You know what I mean? If I would have done this 5 years ago, if I would have done this right after I graduated college or something like that, or even if I was exposed to the information earlier, it would have made a life of a difference. And, that's what it goes back to, putting yourself in spaces that, you're not around or wanting better, and having those conversations and exposing yourself to difference. And that's the opportunity I seen with when I seen you and I seen what you were about. And I was like, you know what? I don't care if I look foolish. I don't care if he says no. I'm going to just see how, if I could be in that world and ask questions and create content and all that. So, once again, I thank you for bringing that up. And it just leads me to, thanking you again, because, it started back then with the career that kind of like snowballing into what I'm doing now with erasing debt, which is something that in our communities is like, debt is something that is natural. Like I talk to family members, they're like, oh, you never pay your student loans off. I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to break the cycle. I'm trying to be different. I want to be free from everything.
Exactly. And
so,
me and my wife, we did Financial Peace University.
Yeah.
And we did it. We did it years ago, okay. And we were, the youngest people in the class. And the one thing that they kept saying, and that's been, I think, maybe the thing that I've been fortunate about is that, I started that mindset younger. I got exposed to it when I was 19. So me and my wife, and we did this. Right before we got married, we did Financial Peace University. And everyone kept saying, you're so lucky to be thinking like this now versus waiting until you're like in your 40s. And we erased everything, all student loan, all credit card, all loans, all of it, right? We went straight gazelle. We went hardcore, right? And I needed that external one, not just strategy. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, they think strategy is the answer. And what I found by coaching many people and working with many people and helping them is strategy is not actually what's the biggest issue. It's all mindset towards strategy.
Agreed.
Right? Agreed. Because for you to pay $40,000 off in 2 weeks, that means you have to change your mindset on your relationship to that cash.
For sure.
And what you could do with it, because someone else could say, dude, you're throwing $40,000 away.
Word. People did say that.
A BMW, man. Live life. What are you doing?
Word.
But you can't get it until your mindset changes, where paying that off is like, no, this is the thing. And I remember, and I'll tell you, this is just a personal thing. When me and my wife got married, we got, money from people. And we had one of our guests gave us a very generous gift. Like, I did not know they was rolling like that. And they gave us, we got a wedding gift that had a comma in it. We was like, whoa, like that was unexpected. And we looked at it and we were like, yo, what do we do with it? And we literally took all of it and put it to my wife's student loan debt. Right? And we just went, okay, you know what? We're in gazelle mode, and gazelle mode says run and snowball and pay it all off. And because then I started saying, but maybe we should take a little bit off and, let's go on vacation. And, but that the mindset goes, no. This goal is so much more important. And to know that when my money comes in, it's my money. Right? Like that, most people won't know that beauty. And if you do experience that beauty, or you haven't experienced it yet, you deserve to experience that, where you can make different decisions. But you got to be willing to sacrifice a little now for a lot later.
I was wondering that, because for a long time following you, I'm like, yo, like, how does he make these moves? Like, I was like, yo, like, because the investments you're talking about and investing in yourself, which I totally understand now, but like looking back, I was so confused. I was like, yo, but like he must be like rolling in, this speaking engagement thing with like getting these big deals and erasing debt. And now it makes complete sense that you say you did Financial Peace University, because I'm a part of it now. And I'm like, now I understand, like, the money that I'm making, that me and my wife are making, and that I'm making full time as a speaker now, I should not be, I should have more freedom, basically. And I look at it now and I look back, I'm like, that's what it was. So you just connected the dots for me right there. Cause I'm like, that makes complete sense. And you know what I mean? I look at it more like I just said, like being free. Because usually someone did tell me that. Like I told that to someone and they thought it was crazy. They was like, why are you doing that? Like you should go, you can do so much with that money. Don't invest it. Student loans don't go away. And I'm like, what? It's a complete opposite of what the Financial Peace teaches you. And I'm just like, what I'm trying to do is just to be free of everything. I don't want to owe anybody anything. When I buy a car, I want to be able to pay it cash and walk away like that's my car. You know what I mean? I don't want to owe anything to a loan. I don't want loan to be nowhere near me in like the next year. After this year, me and my wife should be debt free in about a year's time with our plan. And I'm trying to, thank you. And it's crazy. We had like over 100, and it's just like, we had savings, but we like saving it for like what? It's just like, you have to like fully dive in, you know what I mean? And it goes to, we're getting into the debt thing, and that's a big part from where we come from, to erase debt so that you can have freedom. But in any career choice, you have to like just let go. A lot of people that call in, and I know you probably get these responses from people like so hesitant because they wanna use part of your program, but not fully dive in. You know what I mean? They want to, because they think they know something better. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, and it's in everything. Like Dave Ramsey gets callers in there. They half stepping. They want to do parts of it, but they still want to have credit cards, or, you know what I mean? And it's just like, you're not fully invested, so you'll always be trapped. You know what I mean? And in order for you to be successful, you have to fully dive in to, whatever it is you want to achieve.
And I know why I've thought about this subject a lot, right? Like when I think about what holds people back, and I believe it's just an Arel thought. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think the biggest fear we have is we don't want to be taken advantage of, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what that is like, I don't want to give this person, like, I don't want to invest $500 in this course because, well, what if they take advantage of me and they don't actually teach me anything and I get duped and then I feel bad, and so like there's such a high level of fear, and that is a poverty way of thinking, because all of my friends who do very well, and I've done my best to do this myself, is I go, if I get one idea, that pays for itself, right? Like, it's not about, I got to get a zillion ideas, right? It's, can I get one idea that I didn't have before that I can practically use, right? Because if literally, let's say, for example, the only thing you got, Carlos, was, write a book, and that helps my confidence. And because I have confidence, I can quote more, and I just made 3 times, 4 to 5 times. Like, and I'm not saying that's what it was for you. I'm saying, but if it was that worth $500? Of course it was.
For sure.
Like, no question. So I think what happens is we have this fear of being swindled and taken advantage of and being hustled, and that's almost like the worst possible thing, that we won't invest and we won't go after things because of that one fear. But wealth-conscious thinking and people who actually take action and achieve results, especially with people who I help, professional speakers, they're the people who go, if I get one idea, if I can go apply that, this was worth everything in its weight in gold, because they get that one idea snowballs, to use Dave Ramsey language, into more and bigger ideas.
And even deeper to that, like I believe people that do get duped, and you know what I mean, because that does happen. Like, that does happen to people that get duped. But if you look at it, those are people that are trying to get quick schemes. You know what I mean? Trying to get quick money, right? They don't do the research. And that's the thing with my wife. My wife is I'm blessed to have someone like my wife in my life that's so close to me. She does the research for everything. So like, she always says, is like, she just looks at me, it's like, why are you fighting me? You know I do my backtracking on there. You know I look up everything. And I was just like, and that's why I gave it. I was like, you're right. She never led me astray. So like, I gotta, she does do her research. And you know what I mean? Those people that get duped are people that trying to get quick money. Like they don't do their research. They hear this deal and they go all in. And that's how you get duped. If you do your research, and you really passionate about the work or the mission of erasing debt or whatever it is, you won't get duped because you're so strategically looking through the programs to kind of like see how it fits in your world. You know what I mean? And exactly. I think that's the biggest difference. I think if you've gotten duped, you need to understand and realize like you were trying to do something with as little work as possible, to be honest. You know what I mean? And that's where it goes back to. You have to do the work. And that's something I learned from you as a mentor. Like you walk the walk. You know what I mean? You're the type of guy that no matter how much money you've made, you're still showing up at conferences for free and you're doing these shows on the side and you got a table and you're trying to advertise and this and that. And now I'm like, I seen you do it on that big level. And I'm like, why can't I? You know what I mean? I got to put in the work. I want to create impact. I want to change lives. I want to do, I want to be this big speaker, but I got to be putting in the work daily. You know what I mean? So I think that's what it goes back to. So it's good you brought that up because, I see a lot of people complain about that too. And they're complaining about their situation, but they're not willing to put in the work, like the real grind. Like my wife is dead serious. Like we get out the shower and she's like, okay, let's sit down. We got to do our numbers for the month. Like, well, we're going to break down the numbers so that every dollar we made has to go somewhere. You know what I mean? And that's how you got to look at your career. Like, you got to sit down and like what I've learned from you, what I do now is I do a daily planner and I break down what I got to accomplish in this day. You know what I mean? And for my speaking business, like what I need to do, the numbers, where my money going, who I need to speak to, what I need to get done with this part of the business or whatnot. It's all about putting in the hours and the work, putting in your shots. So, you know what I mean?
That's it. And I think if people look at it like, one of the things that I love as an analogy is sports, right? I love sports. I know you like basketball too. I'll go basketball. Like, could you imagine LeBron James going, I'm already good at basketball. So like, I don't have to practice anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, I'm LeBron James. I'm good at basketball. I don't need a coach. Yeah. I'm LeBron James. I'm good at basketball. I don't need to eat good anymore because I know how to play. Like, no, their mindset is actually the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm going to work harder than everyone else. Yeah. And I realized that ultimately, like, if somebody's sitting down right now, and if you're listening to this, and maybe you're an individual who's questioning, well, do I have talent or do I have something that's so unique, and you're questioning that, like, I feel like I don't have those things. If you just have a really good work ethic, you win in today's age. You just win because most people have almost romanticized or fantasized of the I don't work hard and I sit on a beach and drink a daiquiri in a coconut shell with a little umbrella in it and I count my money in a hammock, right? Like they've fantasized that, and literally I know no one who that is their goal. Yeah. That's what they do to unwind. That's what they do to relax. But that's not the goal. The goal is the impact. The goal is the work. The goal is the helping people. And this beautiful lifestyle you get to live is a direct proportion to how much value you're giving. And if all you did was work hard at whatever it is, just worked really hard at it, you're not competing with 99% of speakers or entrepreneurs or whatever fields you're in. You're competing with 1%. Because, and I would rather, and the way it was positioned to me from a mentor that always stayed with me is how many people are trying to get a job at the entry level of McDonald's? Millions. How many people are vying for the CEO of McDonald's job? A handful. Yeah. So you just realize that the harder you work and the higher up you go, it's actually less competition. Ooh. And that's a beautiful thing.
I like that. And like another thing that I've noticed too, to bring it back to your sports analogy, which is perfect. Me and my wife, like we've been talking about this for a while now where we had a conversation with a friend, and the friend had brought up, their dislike for LeBron James. And that right there is a disclaimer for me. It's just like, I want to hear why. You know what I mean? For someone to hate on him, like, I got to hear your reasoning for it. Because the work effort, because I look at it like this, for someone to go that long in that career and be at the top of the game, 17 years in, and still top 3, top 2 players in the whole entire world, the work that goes into being there, you know what I mean, is respectable. You know what I mean? And for you to just not like the person, right? And the only thing you have to say is because he left the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2010. I'm just like, I see that as a mentality thing. When someone breaks, and I have a conversation, like as little as that, like I see that and I'm like, I can't be around this person like that. You know what I mean? I need to start, I see the mental, the mentality, you know what I mean? The difference in mentality. And that right there, you need to identify those people around you, right? Because there are going to be people that just don't get it. And I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, those people are horrible, this and that. They're just not there yet. You need to identify it in your head and mentally start separating yourself, because that can infiltrate your mind. You know what I mean? And I'm just giving you that example as a basketball analogy, but I'm just talking about in general. Like when I hear the reasoning behind people's thinking of what is successful, what is not successful, and the why behind it, it makes me like go into this state of like, okay, I need to understand why. And if the why is not on the same level, I need to understand that there's just a disconnect right there. And it's okay. We could be cordial, we could be cool, but I need to understand that I'm not trying to be there. And if you're around that so long, it starts becoming part of your mind state. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree with that, Ariel.
No, I agree with you very much.
Yeah.
I always, I think sports is a great analogy for life, but I always find that if you take sports as an example, the most critical TV commenters never played the sport. Right?
Yep.
The athletes, when they criticize them like, well, here was decision making or here was this, right? But when you hear people just saying they're a horrible person and the worst and untrustworthy and they've got no heart, and they never played the sport.
Word.
The same way people who've never started a business have all this incredible business advice,
exactly.
right? Because they've never done it. So they have no sense of like, when I look at, any athlete, especially LeBron, right? And I'm a big LeBron fan personally. Yeah. And one of the things I like to say is literally Luke Walton was in his draft class and he's a coach now. And LeBron is
exactly. That right there.
At the highest player level. Like, what don't you like about that?
Yeah,
like, what is hard to, you may say, oh, this and that. And, my man came back to Cleveland. He got them to chip. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the point is like, I will never know what it's like to be an NBA player and to succeed at that level because I haven't done it. But what I do know is like working at my business, if I use it as an analogy, I know that the incredible amount of work that I need to put in so that when people who haven't put in the work and have criticisms, and I get it. Like some people wonder like, well, how can you make so much money in 1 hour doing one speaking engagement? Yeah. And the mentality is wrong because what happens when, like, if I speak and I get $10,000 for a keynote and I spoke for an hour, they go, man, you got $10,000 for an hour. That's unfair. I make, $20 an hour. Yeah. Well, immediately it's like, well, what's wrong is that you're thinking that your time is commoditized, that you should be paid hourly. Yeah. Where in regards, if you shift your mindset to what is the value that I'm creating, how am I helping people, the time is irrelevant.
Exactly.
Right? The time is irrelevant.
Exactly.
So, but that's a mentality shift. So a lot of times, like you were kind of saying, it's kind of like to quote Drake, I'll quote Drake here. He says, if y'all not feeling us, it says more about you than us.
Ooh,
right?
I like that one. Yep.
So that stays with me because I think anyone who doesn't respect a work ethic and doesn't respect it says more about them than it says about the person they're criticizing.
I like that a lot. Yep. I hear that. I hear that all the time. People always like, they say that's unfair or how is that possible or whatever. And you know what I mean? And even, that the stuff that goes into it too, like like with the whole speaking career, it's not just speaking. Like for me, I take it like a whole, like what I've learned from you is I study the whole system before I go there. You know what I mean? I go and it's for me, it's a whole day event. Like I'm there, and that's how Kip hired me. I was speaking at Kip for 2 years, and they would see me show up. I would speak at 11. I'll be there at 7:45 when the doors are open and shaking hands with kids in classrooms with kids, and like me, like really being a part of the culture. Because for me, I was speaking about this with my a previous guest of mine that's a speaker as well. Sometimes we just, I want to feel the energy of the school so that I know what I'm giving. Like sometimes you just have to scrap what you're about to say because like, okay, this ain't gonna work for this crowd, right? Or like you just have to give them what is needed and not what you think needs to be said, but what actually needs to be done in that moment. And that's why I like to make it a whole day event and be a part of the culture and study it and the preparation behind it. So, you know what I mean? And I love what you just said. And that's something that I believe in, like you putting in the value in what you're offering, right? And my wife said this all the time, like, you know what I mean? When she goes, and I learned this from my wife, where she goes to work, we're both educators. And when she goes to work, there's many times in the day where, you're working, you're teaching, but then you get your breaks. And what do you do on your breaks? Most people go on their cell phones. Most people actually take a break. But if you actually look at the time that you're at work, that you're getting paid for, as time where you're supposed to be doing work, like you lesson planning, like getting grades done, like having meetings in between those pockets of the day, that when you get home, you're done. Most people, they're at work and education, they're on their phones, they're scrolling, they're trying to decompress or this and that. And then when they get home, they got to grade papers. They gotta do this other stuff. And they're actually essentially working all the way to midnight sometimes. And you know what I mean? If you actually take the time that you're working, right, and actually put all your energy into the job, right, and put in your hours, you will see a big difference in your life. And then that's how you will move up, you know what I mean? And then create your own thing because you value your time at work and at home. And you don't want to take work home because you value your time. So it just all goes back to like what you just said, bringing value. So that was key. Last thing I want to ask you, Arel, before I let you go. This has been an amazing podcast episode. One of my mentors, someone I look up to, someone that I appreciate dearly. And what I want to ask you is, what last piece of advice, if anything, a little gem that you will give my audience if they're trying to find some motivation to get to the next level in whatever aspect, whether it's sports, whether it's school, whether it's with family, relationships or whatnot. What is one gem you could drop on them to help them, start thinking about it differently to move to the next level?
Yeah, it's a thing that I hold tight to me when I think about it. I look at my life and I say, what's working, what's not working? And whatever is not working, I can't keep doing the same actions and be upset that it's not working. If I look in the mirror and I don't like the way my body looks with my shirt off, I can't keep eating the same food I've been eating. Yeah. I can't keep drinking the same drinks I've been drinking and expect when I look at the mirror, I'm going to see a different result. So I either have to say, I'm cool with this pot belly, or I can say, you know what? I ain't no dang pot belly having dude. Right. I'm about to clean this diet up. So I have to change my action. So it's a very simple thing. You look at your life and you say, this is really valuable, and I don't get to talk about this a lot, so I'm really glad you actually asked this question. I look at my areas of my life, right? My personal relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, my physical well-being. How good do I look naked, right? Is she still going to be attracted to me when my shirt's off? I create these categories. I look at my finances. I look at my, how often have I traveled? I look at all these areas, and then I rank it 1 to 10. And 10 is I'm super, super, super happy. It's never perfect. I don't believe in perfection, right?
Yeah.
But super, super, super happy. And 1 is I'm not happy at all. And if there's anything on my 1 to 10 list that's looking low, I got to crank it up. So that means I got to do something I haven't done. That means, okay, I got to hire a personal trainer because clearly I'm not going to the gym as much as I'd like to. So I can't just think I'm going to change my mindset. I got to put myself on the line. Like you did, I have the True Speaking Success system, right? Yeah. So someone can go right now to truespeakingsuccess.com, watch a free training that I did on it, get immense value. I'm also, like, on that website, we give a list of 19 groups that book speakers right now. It's just there as a gift for taking action because I know so many few people do. Now, some people may go, man, you know what? Carlos is speaking a lot. Just do the Arel speaking. Like, I want to do that too. But if you don't take some different action, you can't get mad. Like, don't get mad at the work you didn't do. Yeah. Right? Word. So ultimately, if something is not working in your life, you have to dramatically change your actions and your perceptions around that thing. So create a list, scale it 1 to 10. And if there's an area where you're like, I need this number to be higher, you just have to choose a completely different way of acting, living, and being. Because if what you're doing is effective, it would have already worked. And Carlos, you experienced this with the debt snowball in the Financial Peace University, right? Like you said, okay, this debt thing is bothering me. I don't want it anymore. I got to do a dramatically different approach than what I've been doing, which is what you did. Yeah. That's why you're on the path that you're on. And that's why student loans is the only thing standing in your way of paying everything off, which you'll get to. But that's because you said this number is lower than I'd like it to be. I got to radically change my actions. So ultimately, if you are not willing to radically change your actions, shut up about your life. Word. That's it. Because that's the only thing that's going to make it change. That's you are going to be the only thing that's going to make it change. So either accept where you are and say, this is who I am, or say, this is not who I am. What would that person do? I'm going to go do it.
That's deep, man. Well, that I would advise everybody to take that advice. That's something that I did, and I'm still doing to this day. And that's another thing. I'm sure Ariel will attest to this. The work never stops. No matter how successful you are, these are things we still do. So if you're at the beginning stages, and trust me, before I met Ariel, I had no freaking idea what I was doing. And I just continued trying and rubbing shoulders with people that knew and continue to go to get to the point where I'm at now. So if I could do it, if Ariel can do it, you can do it too. Wherever level you're at, whatever you've been through, you can own it and create something that, you didn't think could exist. But you are in control of that. So last thing, Ariel, I know you talked about your True Speaking Success. We'll get you a little more promo here. How can people contact you or find you outside of, truespeakingsuccess.com? Where else can they find you if they want to contact you and learn more about you, or if they want to bring you into their school as a speaker or whatnot? How can they contact you?
Yeah, so the really cool thing about having a name like Arel Moodie is that I'm the only one with this name in the world. So if you put my name into Google, I'm the only search results. So it's super easy to find me. So you can go to my website, which is ARELMOODIE.com. You can go into Facebook and Instagram is probably where I'm most active. So if you go to Facebook and Instagram and put in my name, I'm the only one that pops up. I try to stay away from Twitter. Twitter's kind of become like a really... the space has become a little negative to me, a little more negative than I like. So personally, I've pulled out. Maybe LinkedIn, I'm kind of liking the space there. It might be a little bit more active, but ultimately, I would say Facebook and Instagram. Check out my website, and honestly, and I always say this, and I'm always surprised at how little people take me up on it. Like, yo, shoot me a message. Like if someone's listening, they go, man, I got a question, or I want to say something. Like, legit, go to Instagram, shoot me a DM. Go to Facebook, shoot me a DM. Like, I look forward to those because I know literally like 1,000 people could listen and I could put in that request and 1,000 people might go, I might actually do that. But then 2 people do. Yep. Right. And those are the 2 people that I'm looking for. I'm looking for who are those 2 people because I know those are the Carloses that are going to make a big difference. And the more, we can identify who those people are, the better the whole world is. So ultimately, I hope people take action. I hope they reach out to you, Carlos. I hope that they stay connected to this podcast and keep listening to this kind of content, because it's so powerful in programming the subconscious mind along with the conscious mind. It's very, very powerful. So just thank you for putting this together, and thank you for having me.
No problem, man. I appreciate you. So we've come to an end, episode 17. We'll see you next week. Later.
I think that it's something that every school should have. We do more than just teach lessons. We do more than purchase textbooks and work. We're teaching the whole child. So in teaching the whole child, you have to know how to approach the whole child and how to deal with that individual in order for that person to cope with everyday ups and downs. So it is something that is essential, because oftentimes there are things that happen in the hallways or in the classroom, and if we don't know how to approach a child and to help him or her to see him or herself, then we've lost.